All right. Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started and kind of let people jump in as they want. I'd like to welcome you guys to our first ever STEAM Seekers event as part of the Library Makers community. We wanted to let you know that this meeting will be recorded and it will be available for future viewing. And also this project was made possible in part by the Institute of Museum and Library Services. If we have a few minutes, let's see if we want to kind of go around and introduce yourself. Let us know what brought you here today. You're welcome to type it in the chat or turn on your video if you want. I will go first. My name is Jennifer Ensign. I am from the Cameron Public Library, which is a very, very small rural library in Cameron, Missouri. Location-wise, you're looking about a little north of Kansas City. I'm the children's programming coordinator here. And basically I do the programming for kids from the time they go into kindergarten until they graduate high school. So I'm very focused on that age group with my activities that I do. My particular library is very small. We are city funded. We have a very, very small budget and very limited staff and space. And we're pretty far away from a lot of the closest enrichment activities like museums and stuff like that, that our area kids might be able to go to. Let's see, Lisa, would you like to go next?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Regala. I'm a consultant. I have a consulting business called Regalium Consulting, but I've worked for many years in Maker Education. I was formerly at Maker Ed. I've worked at museums and other nonprofits focused on maker education. And I've worked the past, I don't know, probably about 6 years, a lot with public libraries throughout the state of California and now nationally, and helping to bring maker programming into communities and helping to support libraries to be able to really focus on community-centered maker programming. So excited to be here. I'm here supporting Jen today and doing tech supports. If anyone's having any challenges or questions, feel free to message me in the chat. And we have a small group. I mean, I would say if people are comfortable to show yourself on video, part of the goal of our work is to build community. So it's great to even just say hi. So feel free to put it in the chat, but if anyone's comfortable putting their camera on for a minute and just saying hi and sharing a bit about who you are and where you're from, that would be great.
Then again, you wanted to go.
Right. Christina, do you want to go?
Hi, my name is Christina Leftwich. I am located in Bloomingdale, Michigan. Basically, the entire paragraph worth of information that was just given about the size. We're rural, very small. I'm currently at work, so I'm going to probably keep everything off in case I have people come in, because that's how it's flowing. And mainly I'm doing the preschool aged kids, but I also do something now that's called Try This at Home, which we try to keep STEAM/STEM related, which is a family activity that they can take home with them as a kid. So this is something that I just started, and that's really why I signed up for this, is so I can hopefully get some ideas and see what's out there. And this paper circuitry thing seemed like a really neat thing to perhaps introduce.
Awesome.
And if you're wondering, we're in Southwest Michigan, not too far from Kalamazoo. Most people have heard of a Kalamazoo.
Thank you. Awesome. It looks like Abby said hi in the chat from Scottsboro Public Library. So hi to you, Abby. If any of the others would like to jump in, you're welcome to.
Yeah, hi, I'll say hi. My name is Jane Fleming. I'm also at a library in Michigan, in Portage, Michigan, which is right outside of Kalamazoo, which we just heard one of our other participants talk about. I'm the STEAM Initiatives Coordinator at this library. We have a brand new makerspace we just opened last May, and also a digitization center. And I have done some paper circuitry with elementary and middle school age kids, and it went well, but I really would like some more ideas to take it further. So that's why I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm also going to turn myself off because I have other colleagues here who are working. So
No problem. Such is the life of libraries.
Hi, my name is Mary Moore. I'm the director of Smyrna Public Library. We're a municipal library in Metro Atlanta, about 55,000 people. I spent several decades of my life at Huntsville Public Library. So shout out to Scottsboro. Hello. We have a lot of different, we don't have a makerspace. We don't have the room for it, but we do have a lot of STEM and STEAM programming. So like everybody else, I'm always looking for new ideas. You can repeat things, but you usually have to wait a couple of years to see you get a new batch of people. So I'm always looking for new ideas in the interim before I can just repeat what I did 5 years ago or whatever. But one thing that we're focused on with our STEM and STEAM programming is it's really a trick to get adults to do STEM activities. We require the adult to work with the child on their project to solve the problems together. Instead of us teaching the class, they're figuring out, they're given the materials and given the instructions, and they have to figure it out together. And instead of just sitting in the back of the room on their phone. We found that is really effective in building our adult readership, but also adult power users of the library as well, when they get more involved in the programming.
Awesome. Thank you. Marissa?
Having some video problems and I'm in a very small branch today, so but I at my branch have a cricket, so I do
Marissa, your volume is so quiet. We can barely hear you.
Sorry, am I better now?
There you go. Yes, yes.
I had the mic put up by my ear. I had it pushed up. I have a cricket cutter at my branch, and so use that to do some paper crafts and more activities with 3D space. For February, we're doing a big system-wide STEAM Week program, and I have a paper circuit that I'm actually have for next week's program, and am a bit of a hobbyist creator. So I'm learning a bit more about CNCs and 3D printers on my own. Our main library branch has that capacity, but not mine.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. Well, I think that was everyone. So I'll go ahead and get started. I wanted to kind of let you guys know what Library Makers is first before we kind of get started into this. We are a brand new group of library staff and maker staff that are basically trying to create this community of library makers. So it doesn't matter if you have a maker space, like the official kind that you see like as a destination, or if you have a very small library and you throw in some maker activities in your normal activities that you do. We consider all of that being a library maker. So we're a networking group. We're hoping to build this so that way people can get more ideas, more resources, more opportunities to learn from each other, because a lot of times you see these professional voices online, and it's a little intimidating to jump into that kind of program. And we feel that there's a lot of really good information and learning opportunities from each other. So we're hoping to welcome that kind of environment, provide support, build content. This is still the development stage. So we're still, trying to add more and more. So we're hoping that through this kind of a program, we can learn from each other. I will have some ideas here for you. But feel free if you have tried something like this and you had a different experience, or you have another way that has worked for you, please jump in, interrupt me, and I will be, we would love to hear your side of things too. There will also be a survey at the end of this. We would love to hear if you would like information on different topics, anything that you would like to have us add to this Library Makers community that would be helpful for you and your library. So let's see here.
And we had
Check
while you're
this.
getting ready, Jen, we had a couple
Yeah.
people just join, so
Oh, sure.
welcome. And if you don't mind, just put in the chat, say hello, your name, and where you're coming from.
Awesome. Okay. Hi, Chris. All right, so we're going to be talking about paper circuits. And as a disclaimer, I am not an electrician and I am not a science teacher. I work at a very small library. And if you are like me, you have had to learn a lot of things just to be able to teach kids is who I usually work with, but adults and everybody, you have to kind of learn the basics to be able to teach them the basics. And then as a maker program, I try to show them the basics and then let them go from there after they've learned those basic steps. So I'm going to show you some of the things that I have learned about basic circuitry whenever I'm trying to teach the concepts. I'm going to show you some of the projects that I have had luck with. Some of them I haven't had luck with. And then I will also kind of share some cost saving supplies that I have found that have helped out quite a bit. So like I said, feel free to interrupt me, not a big deal. Lisa's going to kind of watch that because I tend to be zoned in on what I'm talking about. So don't feel bad.
And if you're not comfortable unmuting, feel free to unmute. But if you want to do that, and you want to put it in the chat too, I'll be watching that and can bring it up to everybody too.
Awesome. All right. So basically what I thought I would start off with is basically whenever I'm doing any kind of maker program that has to do with circuitry is I make sure that they have some kind of understanding of what electricity even is, how it works, especially with the younger kids. I've done programs for ages 5 through teenage usually that have to do with circuitry. And you basically just kind of have to put it a little more simplified for their level and don't assume that the older kids know the basics either. So I usually start off just with the basics for all of them. I brought some supplies. So let me go back to my screen because sometimes things disappear. So as an example, what I usually start off with is just a Christmas light. And you can get an old strand of Christmas lights. And if you have a wire stripper, you can use that. If you don't have a wire stripper, you can just use scissors and like cut the coating very carefully off, like by barely squeezing the scissors and expose that copper wire underneath. So I ask the kids, how do you think the electricity gets to this? Whenever we're, plugging something in, depending on their age, they have some pretty creative responses. And then we talk about, power sources and how the electricity gets from the power to whatever you're lighting up or making move. That's whenever we talk about batteries. And I have a button battery here. It's hard to see because it disappears, but I usually use 3-volt batteries because if I'm using LEDs, if you use the littler ones, it's not enough power. So you want like the CR2032 batteries to be able to do it. And so we will talk about how the power gets to it. And I will put the light on either side of the battery and it'll light up. We talk about, well, okay, why is it lighting up? And they'll hopefully come up with the wire inside of here. So we talk about things that are conductive and what's not conductive. For younger kids, it's very fun to like have different materials, like a piece of wood, something plastic, something glass, and then have your connections and see if by running it through that piece of material, if the light will still light up. And they can guess ahead of time what they think the outcome is going to be. So if you have something metal, like a hole punch is I'll use a lot of the time, use that as part of your circuit. And then, they start kind of clicks a little bit, the different kinds of things that could work. And then I usually end up throwing out like water. Obviously, they don't necessarily think about water, but I usually bring up, what do you not want to mix with electricity? And then that's whenever they'll kind of think about that. So I'll talk about how things that have water are conductive, And then that's whenever I bring out like a piece of Play-Doh and use that as part of my connection, or a banana, which they think is hilarious. And then that's whenever you can also use another person and have the electricity flow through the person and show that they are also conductive. So those are kind of the basics that I will start with, especially for younger kids, so they can kind of get those concepts down.
Hey, Jen, can you tell
yeah.
us when you're doing that? So you've got can you just go through all the supplies you use? I mean, you'll have that piece of connection, but are you using your LED and a battery? What kind of battery?
Sure. Yeah. So honestly, what I would prefer to use is like a 9-volt because they work better with Christmas lights. But if I'm using an LED battery, for purposes of demonstration, because LEDs are kind of difficult to deal with, I will use these, I don't know if you can see them, these alligator clip wires, because you don't have to hold them on so well. So I will clip on an alligator clip to one side, clip one onto the other side, and then have another wire going to whatever medium is in between. So the wood, the plastic, the metal, and then having connected to your battery. So basically wires making that chain with a light and the battery, and then whatever item you're wanting to put in between there. And that kind of gives them the idea of other things being able to be used instead of just plugging in a cord to make electricity. Does that make sense? Another thing that you can use, well, these are probably the most easy to demonstrate with, the alligator clips, but you can use, this is like picture hanging wire. So any kind of metal wire is great. And that's usually what I use for like demonstration type stuff. So then after they get the basics of what we're talking about, we will start a very basic diagram, not on our paper yet, because it can get frustrating, especially for littles, if they aren't understanding what is exactly happening, and then you're combining in the whole paper circuitry to it. So what I will do is cut out like a piece of cardboard, or this is like a manila folder, and I just kind of cut a section of it, and we will talk about and do it together, a basic circuit. And so we will talk about how it has to touch on both sides of the battery, it has to touch on both sides of the LED, and then it has to have a good contact point before it's going to light up. So because I have this taped real loosely on here, it's not really going to light up until I push it. Things that we usually discuss at that point are like safety things. We talk about how you don't want little siblings, especially babies, to make sure that these batteries aren't being left on the floor. We talk about never licking a battery because they're kids and they're crazy. We talk about not connecting something just directly to both sides of a battery for very long. Let me see if I can show you an example. Okay, so like I've got an LED, and to test the LED, I will squeeze it in between, like squeeze the battery in between the two prongs to test it. But I wouldn't want to tape this there and leave it there because it would get hot. So I try to make sure they understand that stuff. And I also will do this kind of demonstration, and that way I can show them how if the prongs are on the wrong side, it won't work. So the longer prong has to be on the plus side of the battery, plus length. I don't know, however you can remember it. But if they're getting frustrated, 9 times out of 10, it's because it's flipped the other way. So those are kind of some things I talk about ahead of time. And then I also talk about not putting multiple batteries together to power one big thing, because that also will make it get very hot and cause issues. So those are kind of some of the basic things that I start with before we even get started. If anybody has any questions or input, just let me know. And then let's see here. Okay, so we talk about how the electricity has to make a full circle, and I kind of use like a water in a pipe example, because I tell them to imagine a continuous pipe that the water is just flowing through. So if it's not connected all the way, then the water's going to leak out. So that's kind of the visual that I make for them, to imagine that the electricity is water flowing through the wire, and it has to come back to the original source, or it's not gonna work. And that's when we kind of talk about grounding and things like that. Any other ways? Oh, sorry, that's Lisa said that. Sorry. Okay. So that's kind of where I have started as far as the conversation with them. I like to read some books that go along with it. And usually my talks, my books I choose aren't necessarily electricity related. They're more perseverance related, managing frustration, grit, things like that, like Rosie Revere Engineer, Not Giving Up. The Most Magnificent Thing is a great one. After the Fall, where Humpty Dumpty doesn't give up, he tries again at the end. Things like that, I feel really kind of set into that mindset for them, that this may not work the very first time you try it, and it's okay. That's part of the process. And that is actually great, because you're learning what is making it work and how to fix it. So instead of just here, this is what, this is why electricity is good, I really am looking more for them to troubleshoot and to push through, even if it's not being 100% the very first time that they're trying it. So let's see here. And a lot of times, honestly, when I'm doing my demonstrations, something's not going to work every time. And that's great. I used to try to make sure it was going to be perfect every time, but them seeing that it's not going to work for you sometimes is okay. That is going to help them realize that trying and failing is part of the process. And that is the whole thing about making, is that you are building those skills, especially for kids. So that's something to remember. I mean, kids are very forgiving anyway. They think it's funny if you mess up. So, okay. So as far as my projects that I do, I will start with just a simple manila folder like this, do my connections. There are a million free templates online that show you how to connect these. I will send you some links for some. Here's one I got from a website. It shows you exactly how to lay it out and what to connect to what. So if you don't feel comfortable doing that, it's okay. People have got you covered, and I will make sure you have that information. But what we will do—
Can you hold that one up again, Jen?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Jen, can you hold that one up again? Just because it got it's still teal. Can you hold it closer to your? There we go. Yeah, there we go.
So this is just one of,
Yeah.
All you have to do is search paper circuitry template, and it will have something like this. I always start with a basic one light system. You can get, two, you can keep going from there, but the more you add to it, the more potential for frustration. So I always start with just one, and then let them figure out how to add the others on and give them some more examples, and then they can grow that from there. Let me see here. So let me show you. Okay, so after they've kind of got the basics, so the cables that I use, especially with young ones, are like jumper cables. That's what they're called, jump cables. If you've ever worked with like Arduino or snaps or electric circuits and stuff like that, you'll see them a lot. But they kind of look like this, and they're coated on the actual wire. So only the end is exposed and it just makes it easier to deal with. You are welcome to use like a completely exposed wire, but I found that this is a little easier for the kids. And then for the younger ones, I don't get into like paper tape or anything like that, because it's kind of hard for them to deal with that. We will start with basically just an example, get the basics down, then I'll go ahead and add a paper circuit project. Okay, so for paper circuitry, yay, which is why we're here, right? So some things that I have learned, I'm going to take this off. Here is my Valentine's Day card that I made for you guys today. I am not an artist, just so you know, but it's a Valentine's Day monster. So I made this just to kind of show you guys things that I have learned that help and are make it harder. There are, let me see, how do I want to say this? There are a lot of templates that will lead you to believe that you just want to make the cover of whatever you're making have the circuitry on it. That doesn't work for me or for the kids that I'm dealing with. So what I do is I make a false front. And it actually looks like this underneath. So this is my card. I would go ahead and decorate it afterwards, but I will start with this. And then I will put the other page on front of it. So if you have a kid that is very artistic and they're really particular about where your LEDs are coming through, I would recommend having them make their art first, figuring out where they want their lights to be, and then poking a hole where those lights are going to go. And that way they know exactly where it's going to be. So get a golf tee, an old golf tee, and punch it through where you want it to be. And that's something even little bitties can do. And then you know exactly where you want that hole to be. Then I will put it over my paper and make a mark where I want the LED lights to be through the hole. So that makes sure it's going to line up. So that's what I did first. And then I made sure, oh, it's upside down, made sure my light is where it was going to poke through the hole. And I used a template like one of these, right? This one has a place for 2 LED lights, but I just did one that has 1 light. And I used the copper tape to connect. So copper tape is not that expensive. Looks like this, comes in a roll. They're really cheap. They are great, except when they're not. They're very easy to tear. I can just tear it apart. But I'll see if I can kind of give you an example of what most of your kids are going to do. They're going to pull off a piece, really big piece, and then they are going to roll it off of there, which is going to be kind of hard for them anyway. And as soon as they roll it off, it looks like this. So it is a love-hate relationship with copper tape, but it is the best thing for paper circuits that I have found. So instead of just laying this out on the table, I have it already pre-cut into little pieces, and they can use as many of those little pieces as they want. And that way they're not, the more you mess with it, the more wrinkly and broken it's going to be. And they're going to not have a good circuit if they do that. So I use little bitty pieces of the copper tape, and I follow along, like on this one, I follow along and put my pieces of tape exactly where it said to put them. I put my battery exactly where it says to put it. And then when it says the plus side, that means it wants the plus side facing this piece of paper. And then when I tape the battery down, you want to make sure you're leaving a good section of it exposed. So that way, whenever we're wanting to complete the circuit and this folds down, it's going to connect. It's not going to hit the tape that we've covered it up with. So if you follow all of this and then you make sure that your longer side of your LED is facing the positive connection, then you should be able to fold it over and it'll light up. So, and honestly, there's a ton of tutorials. Mostly they're all going to be just like this. And they even have like that site where I had that printed. There's even like already pre-printed monsters. If you want to take all of that extra out of your project, you can. But from what I found, I think they like to make their own more, especially the little bit older crowd. So I just kind of print off just the little template where their tape goes. So after we get that set up and we have it ready to fold over, you can just slip your picture back over it and then squeeze it and it'll light up. So that has to do with copper tape. I have tried using a bunch of different kinds. They're all kind of the same. I don't know that the higher quality ones are really going to work better than the lower quality ones. The thing that's going to be most frustrating for the kids is if they're not real careful to lay it down flat and really press it down and make a good connection, there's going to be issues. So that kind of helps with that perseverance and trying to figure out where to make sure everything is connected. There's another tool that I've had okay luck with. If you have ever seen conductive pens, they are pretty cool. The ink is actually conductive and it does work and it's great. The only thing that I'm not impressed with is that they dry out without usage. So I had this one, I used this one maybe 2 months ago. I went to grab it and I had to work for probably 20 minutes just to get the stuff inside flowing enough to be able to use it. But it's the same kind of principle. You're just drawing instead of using the tape. So this one was a sample like this, right? And I just drew over the lines with this marker or with this pen. And you have to have a really good thick line and a really good thick circle underneath where your battery is going to be. And then it will work the same way. And it's just a pen. These are a little more expensive, probably $12 a pen. So this is not something that I would send out with like a take and make, obviously, where the copper tape would be more realistic for something like that. But if you are if you have a space or you're having a specific program and you're going to be taking care of them afterwards, they'll last okay as long as you're putting in the quality time to make sure they're usable right before your presentation. So that is kind of how that works. Let's see. Does anybody have any questions about the actual functionality and all of that?
Can I throw in another material idea, Jen, that I've used?
Yeah, definitely.
It's not sticky to the paper, but sometimes it's fun. But aluminum foil works well. And I've had kids, like especially around Valentine's Day, eat candy like Hershey Kisses and Dove bars, and the wrappers are aluminum foil, and then you can actually use the wrappers to make your circuit. Again, you'd have to use tape or something to stick it down, but usually kids think it's fun because they get to eat chocolate and then use their wrapper in a different way. So
I love that. Definitely. Yeah, foil is great. And there's even like big, thick ductwork tape that is metallic. So if you wanted to do like a big project, yeah, that would work too. LEDs, LEDs are kind of one of those things that they really like to break easily. So you're right. The more you're bending them, the more chance for that little bitty wire to be compromised. So I think it is better whenever they're laying flat. It kind of just depends on what you're wanting to make. If you really like that look of it sticking up straight, it does have more potential to snap those legs. So if you can do more of like a V instead of like a straight across, that's probably not showing up well. That will probably be gentler on your LEDs. I always tell my kids to test the LED before they put them on there, because I do not buy expensive LEDs and I don't buy expensive batteries because I'm sending them home with them. And so I would hate for them to go through the whole project and have a dud that they didn't realize was a dud before they got started. So something to kind of think of mind there.
They are more expensive, but they're they make fatter LEDs too, like where the light is chunkier, because sometimes for younger kids too, those small LEDs are just hard for them to manipulate. I'll see if I can find the link. I'll put it in the chat, but they're just like, it's just a bigger head on the LED and the wires are a little thicker. It costs a little bit more, but if you're doing it with younger kids, oh yeah, there we go. 10 millimeter gumdrop. Someone put it in there. Great. Thank you.
Awesome. And I think that my headphones have just decided to be weird because that whole conversation from you, Lisa, was very weird in my ears. So I'm going
to hear you just fine.
Okay, good. Okay. I don't know. I just went crazy for a second. Okay, great. So we got some good suggestions in the chat also, which is awesome. I will definitely check those out. So as far as programming that I do with this, and like the logistics of making it work in a library, the numbers, because they may not work, have lots of samples already printed of the diagrams, and I would have them probably on cardstock, especially for the younger crowd, just because it's easier to work with, and the least frustration you can have, the better. If I am other products that you can use that kind of tie in with this is a great Snap Circuit edition if you have any of those. If you have gotten into Makey and doing those kind of things, this is a great add-on to that. And they can do even more with their circuitry if they wanted to using Makey. So I kind of will use this as a base talk, and then maybe like the next session, if we've already done some basic coding, then we'll talk about, making a Makey project. If you are familiar with Chibitronics, they are adorable. They are not the most affordable of the supplies that I can get, especially if I'm going to let kids take them home. So if I was just going to do an activity in the library where they're learning and then they leave the stuff here, Chibitronics are amazing. But we have a very, very small budget. So oh, it looks like Lisa's got the link in there for it. Yeah, they're adorable. So those are some things that that you can kind of, if you're looking at more already done up product where you don't have to get all the little bitty tools, that's something that you might want to look at instead. I also, this Circuit Scribe is really cool. And they have little circuits that you can connect with the pen. That's actually, this pen is a Circuit Scribe pen brand. So this is another all ready to go. If you want to play around and just have it out like as a passive program, that might be a cool way to do that, because it doesn't require as much instruction at the beginning. It's a little more intuitive. I have had really good success with these kind of programs. Again, remember, I do work with kids for the most part. We have STEAM nights where it's just like an hour-long program for school-aged kids, and we'll do basically what I just said. We'll talk about the basics, we'll read a story, we'll make something. That tends to work better for maybe 5th grade and up. The younger kids are going to need a little more hands-on help. So I found with the younger kids, so one of you had mentioned doing a program where the parents are very encouraged to be involved. And that's what we do through our homes. We have like a Homeschool Connect program we just started. So the parents are kind of used to being there with the kids for that, which helps. But that way the younger kids can kind of get that fine motor skill help from the parents while still learning the concepts and creating something. So I've done it with that kind of a group and had really good luck, because a lot of times this kind of hands-on stuff is not in the wheelhouse of the parents that I have coming in here that are doing homeschooling and are looking for that kind of hands-on learning. Plus, if they were just buying it for a one-time project at home, that doesn't seem very feasible. So they're very, very appreciative of us having that kind of program here. Let's see, I've done them as take and makes, and I just make sure I provide very clear instructions and templates and samples, but all of this stuff is so affordable. It makes for a pretty nice take and make, especially if you're encouraging parents to help. And then I go on outreach a lot. So I go to like after school care programs, things like that. And it's small. You don't have to worry about hauling a ton of stuff. So, and they usually have teachers there to help. So I'll bring a simple project and have them do it at that kind of space too. Or even just like working it into my book clubs. I have some kids that come in for like a 3rd through 5th grade book club, and we might read a story about this, and then, okay, we're going to make this paper circuit project to go along with the story. And they really tend to like that hands-on kind of project to go along with their book club. And then, of course, just open making time. We do a monthly making Saturday, and we just have all of the different supplies out with instructions, and we're there to help too. And that kind of project is great because, again, it's like a family experience and everybody's working together. Let's see here. Does anybody have any other suggestions or like programs that you have tried, or
I just had an idea about getting the batteries from a small electric tea light that you can get from the dollar store. That was a cool idea.
that is a cool idea. I have to admit, a lot of times in this very rural town that I'm in, Amazon is kind of my shop for that stuff. So I will provide Amazon links, but again, if you can find it in your local town, that's highly support. It's just if you're in the middle of nowhere, sometimes that's not an option. They don't make Radio Shack stores anymore. They just go get that stuff. So let's see here. I think that is the bulk of what I wanted to make sure I talked to you guys about. Does anybody have any questions? Anything you want to add in? So feel free to interrupt us. But Lisa, would you mind sharing the slide of our emails and stuff?
Sure, hold on.
Thank you. So we are, like I said before, we are kind of growing this whole community of library makers. And as you can tell, I am not a professional speaker. I'm not a professional presenter, but I feel like sometimes that is a little less intimidating than the other. So we really want to hear more about what you guys would like to learn about. We would like to hear about your ideas. Everybody has their thing that they love to do at their library. And so if you would like to share your knowledge about something that works well at your place, please let us know, because we're hoping that eventually this whole community will be able to really grow and help support each other, and that's what libraries do, right? So, and there will be a poll at the end of this. I will send that actually out right now so I don't forget. There we go. So there will be a poll. If you wouldn't mind taking a minute to fill that out. If you are interested in learning more about library makers, we do have a website, that makersinthelibrary.org. There is an option to sign up for a newsletter through that, and the newsletter will have blog updates. It will have all of the upcoming things that we will be presenting. I think in February, there's going to be a book club about talking about tech and teens and how they learn about tech. So lots of different avenues of things that we're trying to incorporate into this network. We also will be having, if you're looking at learning about more specific tools, like some people had mentioned Cricut, and if you have a 3D printer, you want to learn how to use that, let us know what kind of information you're looking for. We have huge libraries that have huge maker spaces as part of our community, and then we have small ones like me who don't have a space for all of that stuff. So hopefully by all of us, working together to provide the information, we will be able to create a database of resources that will be useful for everyone. Let's see. Am I forgetting anything, Lisa? I know you have to jet here in a second.
I would say just we don't have a place on the poll for it, but if you had ideas of other topics that you would like to see too, just put that in the chat and then we'll have a record of it and we can go back.
Yeah, definitely. There will be another STEAM Seekers at the end of February. Will be led by another member of the Library Makers. And I believe they're going to be doing more about engineering and creating, things out of craft sticks and stuff like that, and the concepts behind it and all of that. So So hopefully you guys, if you enjoyed this, you'll be able to get some information from that as well. And there will be a happy hour in a couple weeks that will be posted on the website also. So that's more of a free form, just talking about whatever you want to talk about that has to do with library makers, Zoom happy hour social time. So I think that pretty much does it. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day. I know that library life is crazy busy, and taking that step out to join us really means a lot to us. So if you have any questions or you think of something later that you need to know about, feel free to email me. I will be contacting you all. I will email you all a list of the things that I talked about, as well as our contact information later this week. So look for that. All right. Sounds good. I think that we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.